my gosh. I'm like a fangirl today because I have the coolest guest. He is a two-time Emmy Award winner. He's a comedy writer. He's a music writer. He's an actor. He's done everything you can imagine. You'll know who he is when you see him because his look is unique and iconic. So if you like things to do with Hollywood, things to do about learning and movies, then this is going to be an amazing treat for you because this guy, I need to tell you, as soon as you see him, it'll click. A friend of mine told me about him, and I was like, why does he name so familiar? And then I saw his photo, I was like, boom, I know exactly who it is. So you're going to be shocked and surprised. And boy, does he have some amazing stories about his life in Hollywood and the entertainment business. I mean, this guy has worked with everyone and knows everybody. You're going to be a bigger fan, just like I'm a big fan. So stay tuned. We're going to have some fun. Hi, I'm Honey Gregory, and thank you so much for joining me on my podcast. And as you can see, I'm doing a double podcast today. So thank you so much for coming. And I'm just mind blown right now. I'm like major fangirl right now because my guest is just so phenomenal. Like I remember watching him with my grandma when I was a kid. And then when I did the research, there's just so much to say about this person. And I'm only going to touch the tip of the iceberg. So he is a two-time Emmy Award winner. He's a comedy writer, a songwriter, an actor. He's best known for his writing and appearing on the Hollywoodsquares, which is one of my favorite game shows when I was a kid. And oh my gosh, he knows every celebrity. He's written jokes for every celebrity. He's performed on Broadway. And I mean, there's more and more and more. So please welcome Brucevilanch. I am just
Wow. Thank you.
so
Today I'm
excited.
sloppy seconds.
Pardon me?
Today I am sloppy seconds. I'm following whoever you had before.
Well, today is my
You say
recording
you're
day.
doing a double. I was very impressed.
I have two more after you. So
All
I
right.
do it. I schedule them. But look at you. You're so iconic. You're worried about your appearance. But the moment I saw your pictures, because Patrick's like, oh God, you've got to interview this guy. And I saw your picture and I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly who he is. Look at this iconic style that you have. Your fun t-shirts, your great red glasses, your fun blonde hair. It's just you,
It's
man.
a look. It began being a look and now it's a brand.
It is. It really is.
Times.
Well, I know that you went to you started out because your mother was an inspiring thespian, I guess.
Showgirl, basically.
And she was a
I mean,
showgirl,
that's what she would do. I mean,
oh,
given
good
her
for
dress.
her. I love it. I love
She
that.
married a doctor instead.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, she probably couldn't
You know,
run around and be a showgirl. She's married to a doctor. They kind of sign on this person. But you have been inspired to be in the industry for a very long time. You started out as a child doing plays. So give us some background, this amazing history here.
Well, I was a child actor. I was never a child star, or we'd be having this conversation in rehab.
Yeah, kidding.
They don't do well.
Yeah.
But I did it. My parents recognized early on that I was really happy when I was performing, either in front of the mirror or in front of them, or increasingly in front of our relatives and friends. And so they encouraged it. I mean, their only concern was that should be able to make a living.
Yeah.
And so as a child actor, I didn't make a living. I made money that went into the college fund.
Mhm.
But eventually I outgrew it. I had a deep voice and I was big and I looked older. I was born 40. I looked older.
Well, you haven't
I
changed.
certainly
You still look
am looking
40.
younger. I don't know what miracle occurred, but so I was up against actors who were really authentic, who were the right age and the right everything. And so I started writing, and I started writing about all these experiences. And it turned out that I had a knack for that, and did a lot of stuff in writing in school and in college. And I was always acting and writing. And then when I graduated at The Ohio State University, I got a job at the Chicago Tribune, writing feature stuff, mostly about show business. And I met Bette Midler, and she was just starting out, and I started writing for her.
And that's
And
kind of
50
launched
years
your career,
later, I
right?
still get me the digitalis. Thank you.
Well, she helped launch your career, right?
Yeah, I was there. Well, she was launched. She had launched herself, but I glommed on, like
Yeah, well,
coming onto her coattails.
and I think I heard you say that she was like the wild, crazy gal, telling her great jokes, and it was a lot of fun working with her.
We know her. She was the last of the truly tacky women. That was her description of herself. She's everything you don't want your little girl to grow up to be, and your little boy too.
Oh, my goodness. She's adorable. No, I love her work. I've been a fan of hers for many, many years. And but you went on to write and be head writer of some of the most amazing shows that everyone probably knows, but just had no idea you were behind the scenes. So why don't you get, I know it's like a long
Well, I went.
list.
I did. I was doing 5 years of that, and I was writing for a lot of people who I met, who came through, and I interviewed Lily Tomlin and Joan Rivers, Richard Pryor, George Carlin. I was writing for a whole bunch of them. And so when a group, the Manhattan Transfers, started out, they're celebrating their 50th anniversary right now, and they're retiring now. But we came out. They brought me out to LA to write a TV series, very short-lived summer show, and I stayed. And I was a variety show writer, and this was in the era where cable came in and variety quietly died, and it became award shows. And I wound up writing a lot of those. I am the EGOT of award show writers. I've written them all, notably 25 Oscar shows for which I won 2 Emmys, and I
Wow.
won some Emmys for some other things. So, and when you write the kind of stuff that I write, that's being delivered by other people as themselves, you get to meet a whole lot of people,
Yeah.
and so I became known around town, and this went on for about 20 years, and then they came to me with Hollywood Squares, and they were reviving Hollywood Squares, and the people who produced Comic Relief, which I had written 15 of, said, "Would you? We'd like you to be the head writer, and Whoopi is going to be the center square." And Whoopi said, "Oh, I think you should be the host."
Right.
So they didn't. They thought she was nuts, but they didn't want to piss her off so early in the game. So they tested me, and there I was going. This one's for the win, Louise. And they said, "Well, you're not exactly what we had in mind for host, but we'll put you in a square next to her." So I was in. I became to the left of Whoopi, if that's possible. And
Aw.
for like 4 or 5 years, we did that, and and suddenly I was a famous person because I was on television every night.
Was that your
And
debut, or did you have a previous debut on TV?
did I what?
Was Hollywood Squares your debut?
No, well, actually, my debut as a TV personality was on a show called The Midnight Special,
Okay.
which you may not be old enough to remember, but it was on NBC at 1 o'clock in the morning, Friday night, going into Saturday morning. It was from 1 to 2:30, and this was before there was internet. This was before there were smartphones. This was basically before when there were three networks,
Yeah.
basically. So and a couple of local stations. So there were people who actually were up watching it. They were all stoned out of their minds, but they watched it, and it was rock bands. And what happened was uh, MTV came along and videos came in, and the bands would say, "We don't want to go to Burbank and do this show and tape it. Just show the video. We spent a fortune on the video." And NBC didn't like that.
Mm.
So as fewer bands were appearing on the show, they developed a talk show format in between, which
Mm.
I hosted, and it was kind of like what Bill Maher then did with Politically Incorrect.
I think
Uh,
I kind of vaguely remember because they played a lot of heavy metal, like Alice Cooper and Black Sabbath and things like
yeah,
that. If I remember correctly, right? Yeah, I think I stayed up a few times and
Wolfman
snuck
Jack,
around and
because
watched it.
Wolfman
Yeah,
Jack was the host of the rock part
yeah.
of the show.
I
And
vaguely remember it because I'm 60,
yeah,
so
if
it's been
people
a
who
while.
remember it vaguely remember it.
Yeah,
I vaguely remember it.
yeah, it's been a while.
But so I was known, I was kind of a known commodity. And the irony was when I got Hollywood Squares, we were already in production on a documentary about me, which was
Mm,
basically about the kind of comedy stuff I wrote for other people. And
right.
it's still around. It's called Get Bruce.
Get Bruce,
It was
yes.
released in '99. It was produced by Harvey Weinstein,
No
who
way.
never laid a hand on
He
me.
didn't flirt with you. Well, shame on him.
Hashtag why not me?
Exactly.
The great unanswered questions. Maybe if
Well,
they
you're a
ever
hot
speak.
blonde. I don't understand that.
he was a good producer. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
I mean, and I didn't,
yeah,
we were. It was a documentary, so it was a whole different ball game.
right, of course.
We were shooting on the fly for 2 years, so he wasn't around. He was in the editing room.
Ah, so he didn't have an opportunity to work with you that much. No.
Yeah, we had line producers too, actually. But I, he was Harvey at the time. I was head writing the Oscars. Harvey was an intrinsic. He had turned the Oscars around. I mean,
Mhm.
he created these intense Oscar campaigns, and now there are Oscar consultants and all that. That was
Yeah,
all Harvey's doing. I
yeah.
mean, it was when he was running Miramax and
Ah,
making pictures like Shakespeare in Love and
which is great fun.
Chocolat and all
Yeah,
of these things.
yeah, his
So
movies are great. He did good at his job. He just had some other
mhm.
little issues. That's what's going on. Well, I'm sitting here looking at this. I remember watching Donnie and Marie. I used to love
Yes,
that
that
show.
was a variety show job that I got after when I arrived in Hollywood, the Brady Bunch
Yeah.
and Donnie and Marie, and a whole bunch of shows that people like you asked me about. I mean, the Star Wars Holiday Special
Hmm.
and the Paul Lynde Halloween Special. And I realized doing these podcasts that there's a whole generation of people who watch that
Hmm.
stuff on the internet.
Oh, it's
And
on the internet. Oh, I'll have to go back and see some
oh,
nostalgia.
or you YouTube yourself. You can YouTube me into a frenzy.
Oh my goodness.
So I've written a book about how because they all ask how did these things happen,
Yeah.
and so I've written a book about it. It's called "It Seemed Like a Bad Idea at the Time,"
Oh, good. Give me the link and I'll
and
make sure I
it
put the
will be out
description.
next year. And I'll come back on this show and I'll flog it mercilessly.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
I'll hold you to that.
I'll do it for you.
Yes. So, I mean, like, um, Paul Lynde was one of my favorite squares. I mean, he was also
He
in
was,
Bewitched, which
he was
that's when I
hilarious.
first,
I mean,
yeah, that's when I first was introduced to him. And then he was on Hollywood Squares. And my grandma absolutely adored him. She thought he was like the best thing in the life on the
he was
planet.
on the first. He wasn't at the beginning. The first center square was Ernest Borgnine.
Oh my goodness.
I know people have a hard time getting around that, but they hadn't really found the footing for the
Right.
show. And when Paul came along, they realized that he's a great flavor. And
Mhm.
eventually he took over Center Square. I mean, it was on NBC 14 years. And
Mhm.
we were the third iteration of the show. There was a
Well,
one in the 80s with Joan Rivers that John Davidson hosted, and then we came along.
it's a great
So, but
show.
Paul, if Paul, who I knew really well, if Paul knew 40 years later we'd be talking about him,
Yeah.
he would twirl in his grave.
Right.
Twirl, I'll tell you.
Yeah, why
He
not?
never considered himself anything anybody would ever talk about beyond the one joke he had made that night on TV.
Well, he's fantastic. So I understand that you won an award for the song that Bette Midler sang for Johnny Carson's last
Uh,
show.
Me and Mark Shaman, who wrote Hairspray, which I starred in for 2 years on the
Right.
road
Well,
and on
yeah, we
Broadway.
want to talk about that too.
Before that, but before that, about 10 years before that, we did the penultimate Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and we created a spot with Bette for her, and we did a parody to "You Made Me Love You," "You Made Me Watch You," and it was wonderful. And she won an Emmy for performing it. What can I tell you?
And it's crazy. I mean, it's like you have the Midas touch, man. Everything you touch is
Well,
just amazing.
this book is about all the disasters I had.
No way. There's well, I guess we
Every
don't
now
have
and
to do
again,
that.
Midas had an off day.
You've been in business a long time. I guess there's some things going on we don't know about. Barry Manilow.
I
Wow.
just watched the Christmas special. I wrote the first Barry Manilow special. That was actually my first Emmy nomination, was for the Barry Manilow special. And I just started watching it actually, and I had to stop to do this. So I don't even know. I have a guess as to who wrote his material, but it wasn't me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So
it's a fun show. I mean, what I'm watching so far is terrific. It's very
when,
Christmas.
when you work on the Oscars, how does that all kind of play out? I mean, is it one writer or multiple writers, or how's that
Oh,
work?
it varies from year to year, but they're multiple. Yeah, I mean, it depends on who's hosting. The first thing that they do is try and find a host. After they get a producer, they try and find a host. And many times the host has already got a daily television show,
Mm.
and so they have about 12 people writing, and they bring them over.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's very little left in the budget for the other writers, but they need people on the show who have written the show before,
Mhm.
who can write for everybody else but Jimmy Kimmel.
Okay.
Most of the, his writers write for him. But when Billy was hosting it, it was a small core group of people. Mark Shaman, who worked on the opening medley, where we would take the 5 nominated pictures and write uh, fantasy title songs for them, parodies to existing songs. Uh, and Robert Wall, who's a very funny comedian, he was part of it, and a big group. And that when Steve Martin hosted it, he brought a few of his chums, Rita Rudner, Dave Barry. So it varies from year to year,
Mm.
but basically, you the most of the writing gets done in the approximate 6 weeks between the nominations and the show, because you
Wow.
have to really wait to find out who you're going to be talking about and who will never go near the show because they were not nominated and they are taking the ritual taking of umbrage.
Oh,
So there's a lot of writing that has to be done in a hurry. And of
wow.
course, the show gets booked during that period. Nothing much. They used to have honorary awards on the Oscars, but they ate up 45 minutes to an hour, and the show was just so long that
Mm.
they wound up making that a separate event called the Governor's Awards,
Okay.
which they shoot, but they then edit into mini bites that they
Mm.
put on the big show, just to indicate who won and maybe give a snippet of what they said when they got their award. And still, the show is 3 hours and 3.5 hours.
Yeah,
Go figure.
I remember getting to stay up late on school nights and whenever it was or something
Me
to
too.
watch it, you know.
I grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, and it came on at 10 o'clock at night. And I would, they'd make me take a disco nap, and then they'd wake me up for the show because I couldn't miss the Oscars. No, that was my
A
life.
disco nap. I haven't heard
Even
that in
then,
forever. I used to
they're,
love going to disco.
they're starting an hour earlier for people like us.
Yeah.
They're going to start at 7 o'clock, the actual ceremony in LA. Or no, the 4 o'clock they're going to start it here. So it will be 7 o'clock in the East.
Oh wow, that's early.
So it will. In other words, they'll get the 11 o'clock news. They'll get that
Mm.
money, the 11 o'clock news, which is all the local ABC stations care about.
Yeah. Well,
That's the
most
money they
people,
get. They don't have to share that money with anybody.
yeah, most people try to get that news in.
It's right.
Well, I know that there was some big hoopla when you were on the revival of the Brady Bunch with the new actress. What the world was going on with that?
Well, I've done several revivals of the Brady Bunch.
Oh, okay. Oh my
The
God.
first, actually two. The first one was the Brady Bunch Variety Hour,
Okay.
which was done around 76, 77. And because it came to the attention of Fred Silverman, who was running ABC, that he believed in not single hosts. He believed in groups. He created uh, Tony, Orlando, and Dawn as a
Mhm.
show.
Mhm.
Uh, Donnie and Marie, um, Pink Lady and Jeff. That didn't work, but he had a whole bunch of these things. Sonny and Cher.
Mhm.
That was
Good
all
one.
him. And so he thought the Partridge Family would make a great host for a variety show. They didn't want to do it. They actually played a performing group in their show. So he turned to the Brady Bunch, which came on after the Partridge Family, or vice versa, I forget,
Right.
and turned them. Now the Brady kids had done state fairs. They had an act, a little act they did at state fairs and places, and of course Florence Henderson was a Broadway star. So he thought they would be fun to host. So he came up with this thing where they played the Brady family, who were hosts of it as a television show. And so it was a show within a show. It was
Okay.
kind of like Jack Benny had a show like that many years ago, and of course, it was Jack Benny, but it was pretty fabulous. And you would have people like Marilyn Monroe on the show
Oh,
because they were playing. It was Marilyn playing herself. She was a guest on the Jack Benny show that would shoot during the Jack Benny show.
I
So
remember that. Remember that
this is what we
episode.
did. Yeah, this is what we did. We had a lot of guests and a lot of variety, and we only had to do 9 of them because it was on a wheel. we
Mm,
shared the time slot with the Hardy Boys and
mm,
Nancy Drew. And we were all opposite 60 Minutes. So,
yeah,
children watched us, basically.
yeah.
So we had to do 9 of them. And the Hardy Boys broke out of the pack and they wound up dumping us and dumping poor Nancy Drew got dumped. And he never solved that mystery. And uh, we we went away after the 9 shows, and it was hilarious because Robert Reed was a serious dramatic actor, although he'd done comedy on Broadway, but he was not a musical guy at all, and so it was kind of to watch him, gamely work his way through this thing. And the Brady kids, I mean, some of them were really talented in that way, and some of them were just cute kids.
Mm,
So it was always you never knew what you were going to get. And then, many years later, the Brady Bunch never has gone away. It's still in reruns on things.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Uh,
Quality
um,
programming, I mean, like you said,
exactly
quality
right.
programming.
Well, what they did was they bought the house that they used as an exterior. There was a real house in Studio City, uh, and they bought the house and they went in and they turned it into a recreation of the Brady house from the set at Paramount, and it was called the Very Brady Renovation, and it
Mm,
was like Property Brothers or Fix It. It was a show. It was what I call real estate porn, where they show you how they turned the house over. And so I did an appearance on that show with Barry Williams, uh,
nice,
who was Greg Brady, and he was the singing dancing Brady, and so we did a little number in the
nice.
house. So that was my my return. Actually, we tried to recreate a Carmen Miranda number. Carmen Miranda, for those of you who don't know, was a Brazilian singer, yes, and she had hat with fruit
Mm-hmm,
on it, the lady in the tutti frutti hat,
yep,
and she was a big movie star in the 40s.
mm-hmm.
She was very exotic. No one had ever seen anything like her,
That is
and
funny.
they'd bring her into pictures, and she was almost Charo basically is took that and used it as her template. Although she was never Chara was selling coochie coochie,
Yeah.
and Carmen Miranda was never selling coochie coochie. She was just bright and beautiful. So, but we had Robert Reed dressed up as Carmen Miranda, and so I Carmen Miranda drag, and we tried to recreate the moment where they tried to teach Bob how to dance like Carmen Miranda.
Oh, no.
That's not in the book actually because well it's not because there's so much time spent.
Yeah.
Nobody ever asked me about that, and that's current day.
Wow. That's fantastic. That's hilarious. It also makes me think of when I Love Lucy dressed up like Carmen Miranda and did
Yeah, well,
her
yeah.
number.
Hey, but that was she was married to Desiree Inez,
Yeah.
who was responsible for Carmen Miranda. Pretty much, he was the first.
Really?
Well, he was the first Latin star. I mean, Latin
I broke the
performing
ice.
to come to Hollywood. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I think they actually came around the same time. But Carmen may even have been early. She may have created him, now that I think of it. But they were the ones.
Yeah.
It was lonely out there. There
Yeah.
was Xavier Cugat, who was Charo's husband later on, and created Charo. But when I think about all that, it was a small little posse of Latin entertainers.
They're all great people and great stuff.
They're all brilliant. You can't
Yeah.
stop the beat.
Well, that's why they need it. So tell us about your acting. Like you've been on Broadway and you've had appearances and this and that and
I
there.
been in a bunch of movies, always in kind of small parts. In Mahogany with Diana Ross, and The Morning After with Jane Fonda, and another one that I always ask about, The Ice Pirates,
Mhm.
which is a cult movie where I played a disembodied head.
Oh,
I was an emperor in the galaxy, and I was a gambler and gambled away my body, and my head was put on other different bodies. This
okay.
is in the book because
Okay.
it was kind of a half-assed hit, but it's legendary because it just was always on television because it was Angelica Houston's second picture, and for her third picture, she won the Academy Award. And so they were starting to say, let's show all of Angelica's movies. Well, there were 3, and this was one of them. And they showed it over and over again. And Ted Turner developed a fondness for it, and of course, he kind of kicked off cable television with all
Mhm.
with all of his cable channels. and he showed this movie on every channel. So there's a generation of kids who grew up watching the Ice Pirates on
Well, maybe I'll
television.
see you at one of the horror conventions.
Yeah, I haven't done that lately. Years
Yeah.
ago, I did it. No, invite me. I'll come back.
Okay,
I'll
I'll tell
find.
some friends. I've got friends who help me organize my conventions. I like those too.
We had some dummy heads. We had prop heads for different things the head had to do,
That's
and we
cool.
had one that could get banged up, and we had another one that had to be pristine.
But weren't you also like animated
No,
people?
it was all real.
Okay, okay.
I had to, they did a cast of my head, and it depends on what was happening in the scene.
Oh, okay.
They would cut from me to the head, so the head could do whatever it was supposed to do that a
Okay.
human head could not do.
All right. I gotta see that one. I gotta put that one on my bucket list now. And you're on Law and Order?
Was I?
Well, it's what this particular thing says. Is
I
that
don't
not
know.
true?
Wikipedia makes up a lot of stuff. People
Oh,
go
wait.
on and
Ice
they post
Pirates with
Wikipedia.
Breathless with Richard Gere.
What was that?
Breathless?
Oh, Breathless I'm in with Richard Gere. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, here's
yeah.
a body. Tell me
Richard was
the
my
scoop
friend.
on.
Some friends of mine. I was friendly with Karen Black and her husband, uh, who was Kit McBride, and he wrote this American version of the Godard film, the French Breathless, a French New Wave movie with Belmondo and Gene Seberg, and it was set in L.A. and Jim McBride directed it, and Kit Carson wrote it, and so they said they wanted me to be in it. They wanted me to. We would hang out, and Karen was in it actually, but her the pictures about Richard Gere plays a guy who is a total heel, and his scene with Karen, uh, it was not violent, but it was so emotionally brutal, and she was such a sensitive character that she was playing that they cut it out because audiences truly hated him when they
Mm.
saw it in the previews. So she's out of the picture. But I was in. I had one scene. He mugs me in the men's room stall of a bar in MacArthur Park,
Mm.
drug dealing Mexican bar actually, and Luis Valdez, who was a terrific writer actor from famous for I guess Zoot Suit, um, and I are in this scene with Richard, and Richard follows me into the men's room and comes on to me and then mugs me because he wants I have a necklace
Mhm.
with a heart, and he wants to give that to his girlfriend. Anyway,
Okay.
so I had the one scene with Richard, and when I met Andy Warhol, the first thing he said to me was, "You were in Breathless with Richard Gere."
Well,
I
Richard
said,
Gere is a hottie.
you're a genius. You are
Mm.
brilliant." And then he kind of wandered away, and I said to my friend, "I think he's nuts. I mean," and my friend, she said, "He's Andy Warhol. If he says you're a genius, you're a genius."
That's right. Did
And
Andy Warhol
I got to know
do
him
art
a
of
little
you?
bit afterwards, and I realized that yeah, he had his finger on a pulse, but he was also living in his own world. So,
Hmm.
but look
Did
what a big world it became.
Yeah? Did he do artwork of you?
No,
What?
I wish because I would like that could take care of 700 mortgages.
There you go. Yeah, his work is so unique. I'm surprised that he didn't. Because you're unique. You know, your style, your look. You've been great with one of those
I don't know how
Ford
he missed
pictures.
that bet.
I know, right?
He was too busy doing Liza.
Well, you can't go anymore, right? So you were on The Simpsons?
Yes, I'm on The Simpsons, season 11, which is amazing because they're like on season 38 now.
Mm.
But people continually say, "Dude, I saw you on The Simpsons. Now my kids will speak to me." So it was. I was on Hollywood Squares. You know, when you're on TV every night, you're very well known. So they asked me to come in and play myself.
That's
So I
cool.
played myself. I had one line. It was the mayor of Springfield is giving a speech, and he does a joke, and it bombs. And he says, "Thank you, Bruce Vilanch." And they cut to me in the audience wearing a Fred Flintstone T-shirt, and I say, "Well, Whoopi would have gotten a laugh with it," and that's all it is. But it was wonderful. You had to go in and record it. It was
Mhm.
way pre Zoom, so I went in and recorded it, and they gave me a trunk of Simpsons swag that they had not put on the market. So I have all this exclusive Simpsons swag that only other people who were guest stars were on it. And my favorite moment was I was leaving with my trunk to get into the car, and Elizabeth Taylor came up. She was getting out of her car to go record Goo Goo. She had one line. She's
Oh,
Maggie. The baby has had one line in 38 years, which is Goo Goo, and Elizabeth Taylor said it.
oh, that's
And
amazing.
she said, I did it for the trunk.
Yeah. Oh,
I did it for the swag.
well, you have the most amazing career. And what is your favorite or most memorable moments over the years?
Oh my God, I don't have one. I mean, Hairspray was amazing, and Squares was wonderful, and the Oscars were fabulous. Those were the highlights, I guess.
Well, tell us about
But
Hairspray.
I really don't. And and working with Beth for 50 years has been
Mhm.
extraordinary.
Okay, she's
I
amazing.
couldn't narrow it down to one thing,
Well, tell us about Hairspray, because that's a big deal.
which is
Hairspray.
Hairspray was, yeah, it was fabulous. I mean, I did the first national tour, so I was essentially the first person to play it after Harvey Firestein.
Mm.
And of course, I had to sing, So the good news is you only have to sing as well as Harvey Firestein. So out here he sings "Timeless to Me," and I was not going to do that. So I sang well enough, but I loved doing it. I started on Broadway for a year, and it pushed an OCD button. You had to go in and do it 8 times a week, and every audience was different. But your show was the same, but I didn't know I had that button. I really looked forward to doing it, and even on nights when you didn't feel like doing it, or matinees, especially when you didn't feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it. The minute you felt that audience, they were there at a party, and it's such a lighthearted role and
Mhm.
show, and if I were doing Medea, like killing my kids and dragging them around the stage, I wouldn't be so up.
Yeah,
But it explains Vanessa Redgrave. Those classical roles that can get to you.
yeah.
But this was it was fun all the way. So
No,
and
I wish I could have seen you in it. I'm sure that would have been a blast. So I know that you have been open about your life and your lifestyle. And you've done the most amazing things for the gay community. Do you want to share any of that with us?
well, uh, I was never in the closet. I mean, I was old enough that you didn't come out because nobody came out. That happened with Stonewall in 1969, and
Mhm.
I determined that I was just never going to be in.
Mhm.
And I was fortunate in that I'm in a business that encourages eccentricity and flamboyance, and it kind of goes with the territory. And then they'd say, don't talk about the other stuff. But you want to have a full, authentic life,
Mhm.
and so you wind up talking about the other stuff. And what happened basically to all of us was AIDS, and
Mhm.
that created a political movement that was nascent, but really put us in a position to have a real political movement. And AIDS, it was a pariah, and nobody was paying attention to it. And so we did what we could do to get the public to notice it, which was in show business, we threw a lot of benefits and raised a lot of money
Mhm.
for the charities that were existing, and I got involved in that a lot.
Mhm.
And I would trade off. I would call people and say, "Look, if you come on my show, I'll come on your show." So I learned a lot about all the major diseases that way.
Mhm.
Spina bifida, I know all about that. Myasthenia gravis, come to me. Knew about all that stuff because all those people then came and did it. But it was hard. At the beginning, it was mostly people who had a lot of gay people in their orbit, or had lost people. I mean, Joan Rivers, whose hairdresser died very early, Bet, Madonna, Nell Carter, whose brother passed away. And then gradually it began after Rock Hudson got sick and was forced out. Elizabeth got involved. And once Elizabeth got involved, then the doors kind of opened because, as I used to say, and still do, everybody will take her call. Even the Pope will take her call,
Yeah.
if only to discuss jewelry.
Yeah. Well, she was a
He's got some
phenomenon.
great, he's got some great rocks in his collections. But
Yeah.
uh, I mean, she's like the biggest star in the world, and so she kind of put the fundraising aspect of AIDS on the map, but she also got it into the public consciousness, which
Well, and
and it's where it remains.
right. Well, and I was reading just a long list of some of the things that you did for the community, and it's just amazing. So many fundraisers and charities. It's just a long, beautiful list.
It's
So
a long
thank
list.
you for helping others. I
Well,
think it's beautiful.
I also do a lot of Jewish things and a lot of it's my
Hmm.
various communities.
Hmm.
I
Well,
was adopted, so I get involved in that
we're
a
all
little bit.
multidimensional. We're all multidimensional.
Okay, if
You know.
nothing but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm 4D, like those theaters where the seat shakes when you watch the movie. I
There
went
you
to see
go.
I saw Dune, and it was in a 4D theater, and the seat moved whenever there would be violence or anything. The seat would start shaking. I said, "It's like watching a movie on an airplane, and there's turbulence.
Yeah. Well, I
Only you
see.
know you're in a theater." So
So you're also a judge on RuPaul's Drag Race show.
yeah, I've done that, and I've been a mentor. I was the comedy mentor because they have to be skilled in every area. These
Yeah.
queens. And at the beginning, they either were working live or they were always just lip syncing. They never talked to the audience. But then the young ones at home watching realized to win the thing, you have to do everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be funny. You have to you have to be able to move. You have to be able to sew your own clothes. You have to
Mm.
be able to live in a motel with a bunch of drag queens for a week, 2 weeks, whatever. So the ones now are like super cleans. They can do it all.
Well, you have to. You got to keep leveling up if you want to be the winner, right?
That's exactly right. You've got to
Yeah.
up your game.
Well, we only have a couple minutes. So, is there any tips or anything you want to share with other people who want a amazing career like
Well,
you
if
in
you're in the
entertainment?
UK, and since we're on the worldwide internet web, I
Mhm.
suppose you are. I wrote a musical with Dolly Parton. It's called "Here You Come Again: How Dolly Saved My Life in 12 Easy Songs," and it will open in Leeds in Leicester, Leeds and Leicester, and then 6 months. And December of next year, we will be in London on the West End. So, and it's a very sweet show. It's small. It's two characters and five musicians. It's about a 40-year-old gay comic who's working as a waiter at a comedy club in New York because he's never made it. And COVID hits and the club closes, and he has to quarantine in the attic of his parents' home in Longview, Texas, where
Nice.
he has an intimate relationship with his imaginary friend, Dolly
Mm.
Parton. So it's him and Dolly, and
Nice.
she basically sets him straight, as it were.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun.
That's
We've
good.
done 5 productions across this in America. We did regional theaters across the country, and
Great.
now we're taking it to Britain, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Well, it'll be
So
amazing here, I'm sure.
you're up for it, England.
All right. Well, I wish I was there. I'd see it. And you've got a book coming out. You got the play coming out. You got a book coming out.
Don't worry about that.
And just email me the link, and we'll make sure I put all that stuff down in the description. This has just been so much fun. I appreciate
Great.
you so much. You're
Thank you.
amazing. I will have to do this again because we only touched, the tip of the iceberg here. So after
Right.
your other stuff comes out next year, let's do this again.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
thanks, Bruce. Love you.
Thanks.
Appreciate you so much.